How much pain can you endure, and how much ill can you forgive? In a situation where you have the power to destroy your enemies, it takes a greater power to forgive them. Listen, I have a story for you, and it is the Island of Dark Shadows. Once upon a time in the heart of Africa, there was a peaceful village nestled among vast fields and forests. The people of this village lived simple yet joyous lives, cultivating the land and telling stories under the stars. But this peace was shattered when a terrible war swept through the land. Soldiers from a distant land arrived, taking many of the villagers captive. The villagers were bound in chains, loaded into ships, and sent across the sea to a distant and unfamiliar place where they were meant to toil as laborers. The captors were cruel and heartless. They treated the villagers not as fellow human beings, but as mere property, a tool for their wealth and gain. The villagers endured hardship after hardship, forced to work under the harshest of conditions. Receiving little food or water, the captors showed no compassion, speaking to the captives only in commands and insults, making them feel small and worthless. Day and night, the villagers suffered in silence, praying to their ancestors and spirits for deliverance. One stormy night, as the ship carried the villagers across the vast ocean, a mighty storm arose. Towering waves crashed against the ship, tossing it like a leaf in the wind. The captives, still bound in chains, were helpless. As the storm grew fiercer, the ship was no match for the wrath of the sea, and it soon wrecked by the violent waves. Many were lost to the deep waters, their cries swallowed by the storms. When the storm had passed and the morning sun rose, a few survivors, both captives and captors, found themselves washed ashore on a small deserted island. Weak, cold, and hungry, they were far from any civilization. The captors, though weakened, still attempted to assert their dominance over the survivors. They backed orders, demanding the captives to continue to serve them, despite their shared misfortune. Even on this forsaken island, the cruelty persisted. Little did they know, this island held a dark secret. Long ago, the island had been inhabited by a thriving community, but a strange and deadly disease had spread, wiping out nearly all of its inhabitants. The island has since then been abandoned, left to the wilderness. The survivors, unaware of the history, tried to make the best of their situation. The captors, still bent on control, forced the captives to build shelters, gather food, and fetch water. However, soon after they had settled on the island, strange signs began to appear. Some of the captors began to fall ill. It started with a cough, then a fever, and soon they were covered with boils and sores. One by one, they fell victim to the mysterious illness that had once ravaged the island. Desperation set in as the disease spread among them, sparing none of the captors. The captives, however, remained healthy, unaffected by the disease. As more captors succumbed to the illness, they began to realize that the captives were untouched by the disease. There was something different about them, something that kept them safe. It soon became clear that the villagers knew the secret to surviving this plague. The truth was, the villagers had carried with them the knowledge of an ancient remedy. Their ancestors had passed down the secrets to curing many illnesses, including the one that now ravaged the island. It was a mixture of herbs, roots, and leaves found only in the land they once called home. The captives had quietly been using the remedy to protect themselves from the disease, that had begun to affect the captors. Seeing their numbers dwindle and their strength fading, the captors realized they were at the mercy of the very people they had once treated so cruelly. The tables had turned. In their desperation, the captors knew they had to ask the villagers for help, but they could no longer demand it. They had no power left. They had to make peace, to humble themselves before the villagers they had once enslaved. So with heavy hearts and weakened bodies, the surviving captors approached the villagers. Their voices, once commanding and full of scorn, were now trembling with fear and humility. They begged the villagers for help, for the secret cure that could save their lives. It was a moment of truth for the captives. They could have easily turned their backs on their former tormentors, leaving them to suffer the consequences of their cruelty. But the villagers, though they had suffered greatly, were wise and compassionate. They knew that vengeance could not bring peace to their hearts. Instead of seeking revenge, they chose mercy. They agreed to help the captors on one condition, that from this day forward, they would be treated with the respect and dignity they deserved as fellow human beings. The captors, desperate and grateful, agreed to the terms. The villagers shared the secrets of the cure with them, showing them the plants that were on the island that could be used to fight the disease. Slowly, the captors began to heal, their strength returning with each passing day. As the survivors worked together to survive on the island, something remarkable happened. The barrier that had once existed between captor and captives began to dissolve. They shared food, stories, and the work of rebuilding their lives. The captors, humbled by their experience, began to see the villagers not as properties, but as equals worthy of respect and friendship. Over time, the island became a place of peace and cooperation. The captors and captives learned from one another, building a new life on the island together. They planted gardens, fished in the sea, and built homes. The island was a place of death and disease, became a new home for both groups where they lived in harmony. And so the villagers who had once been taken from their homeland found freedom and dignity on this small island. They had survived the worst of human cruelty and the wrath of nature, and in the end, they had won not through violence or revenge, but through wisdom, compassion, and the strength of their spirits. The captors, once blinded by greed and power, learned that the true strength comes not from domination, but from unity and respect for all. The island, though small and remote, became a place where a new kind of community was born. A community built on mutual respect, cooperation, and the shared knowledge that no matter where they came from or what they had endured, they were all human beings, deserving of life, freedom, and dignity. Don't forget to subscribe and leave your notification button on for more interesting stories like this. My name is Thank God, and this is SY Times.